In my last video, I introduced a bunch of principles for humans to live by in order to live well on planet Earth. And I'm going to kind of flesh out or expand on that a little bit. But before I do, I want to say, you know, the process of showing principles that help you live well makes me seem like I'm preaching. I'm not necessarily preaching to anyone. Anybody could benefit from learning how to live better, and even I could benefit from doing this too, from just looking at it, questioning, hey, what does it take to live well? What does it take to have enduring happiness? Is it important? Maybe we should look into it. And so when I say things on here, it's going to seem a lot of times that I'm authoritarian or I'm telling you what to believe, but I'm not. I want you to look at these things with an open mind and use your own critical thinking skills and reasoning and come to your own conclusions. But I'm going to seem like I pretty much have it all down pat. It's going to come off that way, and I'm just warning you. Okay, so the last video I introduced 3 axiomatic concepts: existence exists, existence is identity, and consciousness is identification. And those things are true. We can say beyond a shadow of a doubt they are true. You cannot refute them. You'll have to use them to refute them. They're axiomatic that way. So, and in the last video I said they lead to something. They lead to another principle. Reason is absolute. Okay, but I kind of glossed over that quickly. I didn't really show how they might lead there. And so now I'm going to try to flesh that out a little. Okay, so if you look at the 3 axioms, there's like a start of an arrow. It comes together here. It comes out the other end. To see the reason is absolute. So the arrow is in a straightforward, direct connection entailment process. It's not. These 3 axioms don't entail automatically that reason is absolute. You first have to introduce another concept, which should be the concept of a human being with a mind. Now, once you have a concept of the human being with a mind, then the 3 axioms start to have some importance and they start to go somewhere. So you can't deduce things from the axioms. It's called ex nihilo, or from nothing. But when you have the material of a human being, then these axioms become important, and you can actually derive things from them in the background of looking at humans and stuff. And so humans think, and we need to think. Now, it turns out we need to have knowledge. If you want to produce some food so that you can live or clothe yourself, or even learn how to have fun, you have to do some thinking. You have to have some knowledge. Like you might start out thinking, hey, it would be great if I put my hand in a fire because the fire looks pretty and it looks like it would be fun. But you will quickly develop knowledge that you shouldn't put your hand in a fire. You develop knowledge about fire itself, and learning that fire can burn you is knowledge, and that will help you live for the rest of your life. So it turns out knowledge is an objective value. It's of value for all humans, no matter who you are. If you were from the highest CEO down to the most primitive, like tribe, the Inuit in Greenland, or the Pygmies in Africa, or the Aborigines in Australia, or the South American Indians, or the middle of the road person who goes to the grocery store. No matter who you are, knowledge is going to be important for you. It's a value that we already know you need. It's just by being human. It's an objective value, a universal value. Okay, so you have to have knowledge in order to live well. You don't get to opt out of that. I want to have a life without any knowledge. You can't really say that. We can say it, but you can't make it work. Okay, so reality is going to impose some things on us, and one of the things is knowledge is useful for humans, valuable for all humans, everywhere and all the time. Okay, so let's look at how you get knowledge. Knowledge can be direct or inferred. An example of direct knowledge is just watching this video. You're getting a sense perception of you're getting stimuli from you're picking up stimulus from your stimulus array. There'll be in the background behind me. There's like a white wall in front of me. You'll see all this stimuli, so you kind of know that there's something there. And you're probably thinking I'm human, and you are correct. Okay, but your senses didn't necessarily tell you I'm human. Your reasoning did. This is important. Senses tell you that something exists. Reason tells you what it is. Okay, so we have direct knowledge of things, and then we also infer things. And when we infer things, we're using reasoning. We're either using reasoning deductively or inductively. Deductive reasoning would be like the syllogism, all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. Okay, that's deduction. If it's true that all men are mortal, and Socrates is also a man, if that's true too, it can't be false that Socrates is mortal. If the premises are true, the conclusion has to be true. You can't have true premises and a false conclusion with deduction. And then there's induction, which most people mistake something called enumeration for induction. They say, well, all induction ever is simply counting up things. Like an example is the conclusion that all swans are white, because all of them that we've seen, could be 500,000 or 1 million, are all white. So all swans will be white. Whiteness has to do with swanness. The problem with that is all you did was you counted. You said, well, the first 400,000 swans were white, so the next one's going to be white. I'm sure of it. I'm just sure of it. You're not really sure of it, but you have a good reason to suspect it. It's highly probable, but you're not really sure of it. Induction can make you really sure of things. Enumeration can't. Okay, so if you argue that the reason the sun's going to come out tomorrow is because it came out the last 300 trillion days, that's not a good argument. The sun could burn out. Okay, if the sun burns out, your generalization that it's going to come out tomorrow is false. If the sun burns out, it's a very small chance, but it's a small chance. So induction, enumeration, and deduction. There's 3 ways to infer things. Okay. Induction has to do with understanding the process by which something comes about, instead of just the fact that it came about. You could see a bunch of swans, sure, they were white. Does that mean the other ones will be? Not necessarily. That's enumeration. If you used induction to generalize about swan color, you would say, well, what in the heck is making these swans' feathers turn white? And you'll discover that it's the genetic code of swans that controls whether a swan is white. And then you ask the question, well, can that process change? The genetic code, can it change? If it can change, then your generalization that all swans are white won't be 100%, but you will know how much less than 100% it will be. So what you'll get is absolute knowledge of a relative truth. Okay, you're going to get, using induction, you're going to get knowledge that's just rationally justified. You could say it's validated. A lot of philosophers think that only deduction can be validated, and that induction itself is invalid. But what they're saying is, they'll say that induction can only be strong or weak. But they're really talking about enumeration, where you simply count based on your perceptual level thinking. Okay, so it's kind of concrete bound to think that, hey, we just count the swans, and if all of them are white, then right now, then there's a good chance the next one will be white. Well, okay, but it's better to understand how whiteness occurs in reality in the first place, and once you do, then you can make really cool generalizations, unshakable ones. Okay, so knowledge can be direct or inferred. It says, but, what does it say? It says, but should be rationally justified based on context. Okay. So sometimes you'll have like knowledge of something. You'll let's take a court case. Okay. Let's say I've got an example here. It says his dog ate. This is a court case. This will be a civil lawsuit. Okay. In the court case, the plaintiff says, "Hey, the defendant is my neighbor, and his dog ate my homework." Okay, that's the claim. Okay, and before deciding whether the defendant is guilty for letting his dog loose in your yard to eat your homework, the judge is going to, the judge or jury is going to use a standard of level of evidence that they'll make a decision on. And it turns out they'll use is the preponderance of evidence. That determines civil cases. Based on the preponderance of evidence, did that one neighbor let his dog loose, and did the dog come and eat your homework? So we can determine, evidence. We would basically see, like if you had video camera footage of the dog being loose, that's good. Okay, that shows the dog's loose. Also, if you had an MRI of the dog's stomach and it showed crumpled up paper inside, that's good evidence that maybe the dog ate your homework. Okay, but preponderance of evidence can decide a civil case, but it can't decide a criminal case, specifically when there's like a death sentence. But anyway, looking at the criminal case, I don't know if you can read it, but it says he B&E'd and he broke in and entered my home. It wasn't his dog. This is the criminal case now. It wasn't his dog. My neighbor broke into my home, took my homework, and ate my homework, or whatever. Just stole my homework. Okay, but breaking into the house and stealing things is illegal. It's a criminal case and involves jail time, punishment, stuff like that. And the standard of evidence for that kind of inference is to go beyond a reasonable doubt. So if you want to convict someone, at least of serious crimes, I know, you need to have evidence that's beyond reasonable doubt. This would include maybe a means, a motive, and an opportunity. Did your neighbor have the means to get into your house? If it's later discovered that there's a crowbar in his garage with wood chips that match the door, the wood from the door on your house, and then there's a jimmying dent in your door, to show that he had the means to break in. Do you have the motive? Let's say he was also in school and had the same assignment due, and handed in the assignment with your name scratched out and his name on the top. Okay, so he had a motive because he either couldn't do the assignment well or didn't want to do it well, didn't want to take the time. Therefore, he tried to steal it from you. And then did he have the opportunity? It could be that you were away visiting your grandma for the weekend, and that's when your homework went missing and there was this dent in the door. Okay, so we would have to determine things beyond a reasonable doubt when it involves crime, just by a preponderance of evidence when it involves civil cases, like just getting sued for, in the case of the dog eating the homework, there might be some kind of restitution that the court orders, or maybe they'll order that they have to keep the dog locked up or something. And then there's also a third level of justification. It's not preponderance of evidence or beyond reasonable doubt. It's beyond the shadow of a doubt. And I'll give you an example. If you were the plaintiff in the court case and you said, "Hey, this guy, my homework's missing, but I want to bring this something up, Judge. I realize that this guy's a living organism, but he's not even a man. He's a plant. He's not an animal. He's a plant." Okay, so we can determine. It's not really a court case, but if somebody said that, can we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they're wrong? It turns out you can know beyond all doubt that someone is actually not a plant, but they're a human being. For instance, watching this video, you'll see I'm doing a lot of motion. Okay, that's one bit of evidence that I'm not a plant, that I'm actually an animal. Another one is that I'm thinking and talking and communicating, and that's pretty strong evidence that I'm not a plant. But you know, there are some things you can know beyond a shadow of a doubt. That's how powerful knowledge can be if you reason well. Okay, your senses can't necessarily identify the identity of things that you see, but if you reason well, there are some things you can know, not just beyond reasonable doubt, but beyond a shadow of all doubt. Okay, and then what's a different way of what's a different mental state you can get into besides having knowledge is good. Is there another mental state you can get into? Yes, you can do mere opinion. Mere opinion or belief requires a lower standard than knowledge. Okay, so you could have an opinion that your neighbor's dog ate your homework. It will be an opinion, and if you just look at the preponderance of evidence, even though the preponderance of evidence indicates your neighbor's dog did eat your homework, it's still an opinion. Okay, it's not knowledge unless you have to make it impossible to be false. Okay, for it to be knowledge, it can't be otherwise. And there are other, it could be that the dog actually did try to eat the homework, but a cat got to it first and ate the homework. Okay, or whatever, or the homework self-destructed. No, that's not. Homework doesn't self-destruct. But something else could have happened to explain the missing homework. So you can't really say it's knowledge unless you meet the higher standards of knowledge. Let's see what else. So what is it that brings you to that higher standard? Okay, it's not just seeing something, it's not just feeling something, it's not just having faith in something. Like the plaintiff could say, I really, really, really feel that dog ate my homework, but that doesn't make it knowledge. Okay, you have to take your evidence and infer something from it using a deductive or inductive process, and in doing so, and you can use enumeration, but then you're stuck with mere opinion again. Remember how I said just because every swan you've ever seen is white doesn't mean the next one will be white. Okay, it's just not. It's not the case. It's possible for it to be false. So with knowledge, it's not possible for it to be false. False knowledge is a contradiction in terms. Knowledge isn't something that admits of degrees. It is or it isn't. Okay. So with the example of the fire, that's kind of easy. Let's take that because it's easy. But sticking your hand in the fire is bad. Well, there's some cases you could say where it might be good, like to save some child or something in the fire that you needed really bad. Okay, but as a general course of things, sticking your hand in a fire is really bad to do, and you'll learn it the first time you try it. Let me give you one more example of knowledge that can't be false, and it's not direct necessarily. Some people will take issue with this example. If you take two normal dice and roll them, you're going to get a number. And you could roll one and empirically verify what you got. And what did I get? I got a 7. Okay, great. Roll again. I got a 3. Okay, you did. And some people, some philosophers and scientists will say you can only ever be sure about what you see in front of your own eyes. Like the 3 and the 7 are sure, but you can't know what kind of role you'll get in the future because you've never seen the future before, and you never will. You'll see the present all the time. But anyway, they can't. The scientists and philosophers would say, well, you can't say what's possible, and that's the trick. You can't say what's possible. You can't say what could possibly occur. Once you do, of course, then you're saying what it would be impossible. What would be impossible for it to occur? So I can say to you now that rolling 2 normal dice, it's impossible that you're going to roll a 13. Now they'll say, these philosophers will say, well, hey, okay, looks like you found absolute knowledge that can't be overturned. but you used deduction to get there, is what they'll say. You used deduction to get there. Well, okay, it's true that it involves some deduction, but there was no pre-existing fact that dice have to come out with rolls between 2 and 12. Now you can say, well, we put the dots on those dice. We put 2 to 12 dots on them. So, we created the dice. But, even if you found something in nature that wasn't created, that was just like dice, man didn't create it. And you discovered, that those things were everywhere, and rolled them, and they would never roll 13 either. It didn't matter that man created the dice. What matters is that dice have a nature, and that nature precludes some possibilities. Some things are impossible. You will never see some things in your life, okay? And I can know this absolutely. So it's like, you have to judge it based on the context, okay? In the case of a civil case, you're only looking to a preponderance of evidence, and you're going to have a court opinion. It's an opinion, it's not knowledge. The opinion is the judge might say, the opinion of this court is that you're guilty. Okay, based on the preponderance of evidence. That's an opinion. But if you had like dice in court, and they, or not court, but just if you were scientifically empirically investigating dice, I can tell you what you're gonna see before you see it. With the case of the dice rolls, and just like the dice, there are limits to what can be true. There are limits to what can be true. Let's just say that. I guess I'll leave it off right there, because this is kind of dicey. I'll bring it up in the next video. Thanks. Bye.